Hello, Internet. We're back. It is your second favorite runZero Hour host, Rob, here. And I am joined by Patrick Gillespie and Mary Gannon, both of GuidePoint Security. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, GuidePoint Security, what is it you say y'all do there?
Yeah, so for GuidePoint as a company, we are cybersecurity focused only. Mm-hmm. So we help secure our clients' traditionally IT environments from cyber threats, reduce risk as much as possible, and help our clients find the right solutions and technologies for their environments. And then, however, on the kind of, Mary and I are on the OT side of things where we're securing operational technology, again, for those same clients for their OT environments.
Okay. And that's very exciting because OT security is kind of the new hotness. It's the old new hotness, the new old hotness.
Let's say legacy or retro hotness.
It's
there
retro.
We go. It's retro.
It's classic.
Yeah. Windows 98, XP.
A lot of Windows 98, a lot of XP. I saw recently in, I think it was Germany, there was somebody asking for people who could do driver development for Windows 3.1 for one of their train something or other. And I thought real hard. I was like, man, I'd have to learn German, but it's very exciting.
Some things never die.
They never do. So with OT security and IT, there's this whole concept of convergence. Mm-hmm. What is convergence? What does that mean in this context? So.
It's the connectedness of IT and OT. So there's been different ways that OT security has been approached. There's been no approach whatsoever. And then there was this completely air-gapped approach where OT was entirely separate from IT. And so this convergence is the marriage of the two worlds, trying to see how IT and OT can work together while also maintaining the fundamentals of OT security, like safety.
So why is there a push to have them work together? What's the driving impetus there?
There's a lot of benefits to the convergence, which is why they're connected, right? So oftentimes with security, you got to balance cost versus risk, right? And what the benefits are versus the risk of something happening. So connecting Windows 98 or Windows 3.1 to an IT network that has internet access, why would we want to do that? Well, it's to get data off of this system that's been around for 20, 30 years, to make better business decisions, to increase automation, increase efficiency, increase safety. But then COVID happened. So now we're having to work from home. How do we support this and keep our business running and make revenue while our person is no longer touching that machine, they're at home. So that increased even more convergence for the necessity of secure remote access.
Okay. And you said... So first off, you said Windows 98, which, as far as I'm concerned, wasn't that old, because I remember when it came out. But then you said, no, 25 years old hardware and stuff like that. Is that common? Do you see a lot of this ancient hardware? It's
disparate, like it's here and there. But we do have environments. So if you built a manufacturing facility in 1999, it's running a lot of Windows 98. Yeah. But if you built it in, 1950, it's had systems replaced over time. One system may be running AS400. You may have another system running, Windows XP or Windows Server 2003. But then maybe they've added a line or retroed a line, and now it's got Windows Server 2019 or Linux or whatever the case may be. So it's with OT, you never know what you're going to get when you do asset inventory or asset discovery in an OT environment. And
so to dig into that a little bit, well, first off, I do want to say AS400 is the most beautiful operating system you've never heard of. It's really amazing. If you're into retro computing, it's not even retro. It's still out there.
It's still there, yes.
But it's beautiful. But okay, let's pull that thread a little bit with asset discovery. What do you need to do for asset discovery in OT? What are the challenges there?
Challenges are, so OT networks, the way I kind of describe it is the IT network is the tip of the iceberg, and the OT network is everything under the water. So you don't know what you've got until you actually have that asset inventory. And once you actually go through and discover those assets, there's plenty of organizations that have no idea what's going on their OT networks. They don't know what assets are there. They have no concept of counts, how many assets are in their OT network. So before any sort of security measures can be taken and any sort of advancements, you've got to know what you're securing.
Yeah, you can't secure what you don't even know exists.
Exactly.
Why is it so hard for OT organizations to get this inventory? Why is it lacking in so many places?
Well, the teams that care about security and asset management, don't own the assets, which makes it challenging.
Okay.
So CISOs, like GuidePoint, typically works with the CISO, IT security, those teams, supporting the CIO's teams and things, and supporting the business from a front office perspective. So with OT now, the risk in OT, to reduce risk in OT successfully, it has to be a shared responsibility between the IT teams and the OT teams. And historically, so I built freight trains for 8 years for a company from the 1800s.
That's rad.
So yeah, we've been building trains. The world has been building trains since the early 1800s. So think of culture of a team that built trains, that taught another team, that taught another team, to today's team building trains. That culture is 200 years old. They've never worked with IT. They've never worked with security. So, from their standpoint, they just got to keep their job going, keep the line moving, keep their people safe. So if we come in and we want to do asset discovery, we want to implement a new technology for the sake of security, that is risk to the safety of their people. So we could shut down a safety system or a PLC that's keeping, line moving, keeping people away from certain machinery, those kind of things. So it introduces risk. So they're adverse to that risk. So that's where we have to use safe tools to do asset discovery. Start small footprint, build the trust between IT and OT, and that's what we typically do on our OT team at GuidePoint, is build that trust between the CISO's office or IT security and the OT teams to start working together. Because you don't want the first time that CISO or a SOC calls an OT asset owner, the first time shouldn't be when an incident is happening.
Right.
They should have had that conversation already.
And that is an excellent point, in that I don't want to say that IT systems aren't important, but an OT issue could have real risk to life and limb.
Correct.
So, and with the CISOs, they're coming in. How are they feeling about the fact that they've never worked with OT either, right? So there's kind of this approach from both directions. So what have y'all seen with that? Yeah,
they're starting to inherit the risk from a business perspective or board perspective or even cyber insurance perspective.
Oh, yeah.
So they're having to accept the risk, or not accept risk. They're having to, inherit this risk as part of their job duties. To secure something that they don't have ownership of, and they can't even remediate. They don't have ownership to remediate. So that's where they have to really rely on the OT asset owners to actually, protect the device. Because the CISO, we can show them all day long. They got 1,000 PLCs and 10 Windows XP HMIs and all these things, but if they don't have a good relationship with the plant manager, that plant manager is not going to allow the CISO to do anything, because IT and security support the business, but the business is the OT. That's what's making money for the business, and they will win every time if they do not agree to what the CISO wants to do.
Many years ago, I worked at a grocery store chain and I was on the information security team or whatever, and it always came down to, we need this awesome security tool. They're like, does it sell groceries? I was like, not directly, no, and so there was always that kind of push. So with that, what is this, you talked about this this bifurcation in the ownership between the CISO, the IT team, the OT team, whatever. So how are the sort of modern IT security practices migrating over to the OT world? Like things, these are still computers at the end of the day, so patch management, segmentation, things like that. How is that being pulled into the OT world as these two things merge?
There's kind of a shift in mindset when you're looking at OT. So traditional IT, is about data and protecting the data. OT is very much protecting the people, processes, and environment first and foremost, and then also keeping production up. So it's a different mindset shift, and so that's what we're seeing across organizations, is this kind of shift in, this is very different in priority. This is a very different kind of outlook.
But even the IT inside OT, like you said, there's computers, there's Windows, there's Linux, there's switching and routing and firewalls. IT devices or assets inside OT. So patch management is a way of life in IT. You get a new 0-day or exploit comes out, you got to patch immediately. Well, there may be a system vulnerable to that in OT, but that may be running power to a hospital. You can't just shut off power to a hospital or have unmanned, because again, you have to do mitigating strategies, essentially. So patch management can help if the device is still supported and not legacy.
Right.
But that only reduces a small amount of risk compared to how much risk it reduces. So it's a good strategy to incorporate in part of your OT security plan. But there are higher priority things because it's not confidentiality that matters in OT. It's the availability and safety.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. So what then should organizations do if they're trying to secure their OT? Because, in IT, you can just patch something or restart a Docker container or, move to a new cloud provider, but you can't really up and move a factory, right?
Right.
You can't just shut it down for patching. There's, these long maintenance cycles or whatever. So what should organizations do if they're trying to secure their OT environments?
They should have good communication because, again, no environment, IT or OT, is ever fully secure. So even if you did patch OT and you did have mitigating strategies for securing and reducing risk, there's still going to be new zero days, new things that, like you said, you can't just shut it down or reboot it. So that's where, having the incident response plan, knowing what to do. Who does the SOC even know who owns that asset? if the SIM gets an alert for an asset and it goes to a site, do they even know who to call?
Okay.
Does the person on the other end, are they even going to answer the phone and do something, or are they going to go back to doing their job? Because oftentimes when we deploy visibility solutions or network threat detection type tools in OT, there's threats already there.
Right.
But they just can't get out, because, typically boundaries are, hopefully there's not direct internet access from OT or into OT.
You'd think so.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things to do, but it depends on the type of systems and the criticality of the systems and all those things.
So it's sounding like segmentation is probably going to be your first line of defense.
Yep.
I don't want to scare anybody, but I've seen several 100,000 OT devices connected directly to the public internet.
Still today. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. How common is that?
Well, it's not done in a malicious intent.
Right.
So engineers know how to make things work. So when I would go to a manufacturing plant or a rail car repair plant, I would be installing some new, firewall or voice over IP, whatever this project was. But I would go around into the plant and I would find cable modems in PLC racks. So now, so from a security perspective, that's terrible. We have a device with clear text protocols, no password, directly connected to a public IP. But that engineer who did that, he's thinking, I need to save my company money for maintenance. Yep. I don't want to fly somebody from Germany to Arkansas to fix this. I can just connect something up to the internet. They now remote access. They fix it, and they can do it in 2 hours versus 2 weeks.
Right.
So it saves the company money, creates efficiency, but they don't trust the front office. They don't trust security because it's a lot of red tape. It would take longer. So they just do what they're doing their job.
Right, and I get that, but how then could we improve that trust? How do we move past the perception that security isn't the most important? It's not the most important thing, like you said, but
for the CISO it is. So, but you can't push security down their throat, to put it frank. You have to, they don't even want security. Again, that's risk. So you have to show how is doing what the CISO wants to do going to improve automation, improve safety, and make sure that any anomalies, because most outages in OT don't happen because of a true cyber incident. It's insider threats are not just malicious. It's accidental. It's vendors changing things outside of a change window. So your engineers, like if you do have remote access for your third parties, knowing when they're in, recording those sessions. So these are things that you can offer to the OT team. It's like, hey, we know you're paying $300,000 a month for this OEM to support your production line. We can use this tool and know exactly when they're in, what they did, and then now, instead of arguing when something breaks and the vendor says, no, they didn't do it, now you have proof. So now we can offer a much easier path for OT to say, okay, I would love to have those sessions monitored.
Right, okay.
But from an operational standpoint, that's what they care about because it helps availability, whereas the CISO is pretty much sliding security in the back door.
Okay. Also, what I'm hearing is $300,000 a month. I'm in the wrong line of work. I need to...
The maintenance manager, so working for a company from the 1800s, and we have a lot of clients that companies were founded in the 1800s, especially a lot of mining companies, where they have, these huge support contracts with a lot of these OEMs, automation vendors and things. So when I would have let's say a fan on a switch died out in a plant, I would talk to IT and it's like, well, we didn't budget for that. They didn't budget for switch refresh because when corporate tries to do something, they want to do it everywhere instead of budgeting for each plant. So I would go to the maintenance manager at each plant. They had so much budget they had to spend per month toward maintenance. So I would just say, hey, this fan died. This line is going to die when the switch dies, or I can schedule the downtime, replace it, and now you don't have unplanned downtime and you got to send people home.
Okay, that makes sense. So there also seems to be a much obviously tighter maintenance schedule window thing.
Yes.
How is the marriage of this IT security working with that? Because like you said earlier, it's always this instantaneous, why don't we just patch right now? How are we communicating that to the OT folks? So.
Working with them in a partnership. So if there is work that needs to be done, like say there's a patch that needs to be applied, but it's not, critical to patch it right then. Working with them and understanding their planned shutdown times and seeing if you can have a little bit of that shutdown period to do some security implementations, patching, anything like that. So working as a team holistically is the key.
Okay, getting your name on the schedule even to begin with is something.
To know when OT has those planned outages, a lot of times it's around holidays. So knowing, and the next planned outage may be 6 months down the road, you may have a new 0 day in there, but you do the mitigating strategy to prevent that exploit from coming into that boundary or zone. The CISO can typically take care of that with firewalls coming in and out of the plant itself, and then it reduces the risk some. And then that way they know in 6 months at the next outage, because of the criticality of the system and the criticality of the exploit, then that's on their list to patch. But then they have to also be able to work with the OEM, because once they do patch that HMI, then they have to essentially be on the hook to make sure it still works after it reboots. So in case they may need to uninstall that patch.
Everybody does the smoke testing, and sometimes it's actually real smoke with OT, which is always scary. The magic smoke escapes. So then with that sort of marriage of getting into the schedule and doing all that, you're getting IT security folks talking to the OT people, and that's great, but OT people, y'all have said, still view security as added risk.
Correct.
What are some of the risks? What are some of the real risks, and what are some of the perceived risks that are maybe there? The perceived risks that aren't actually risks.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of perceived risk, of course. Just the asset owner if this is my machine, I don't want you touching my machine, because we know if you touch it, you're just going to break it.
Right.
So that's perceived. But yeah, the real risk is our current safety system, which has very low latency, is clear text. Well, CISO wants to encrypt that traffic. Well, how much latency is that going to add?
Right.
If we have an event, will that create enough latency to where it doesn't shut off the machine? So now instead of somebody losing a finger, they lose the arm. So they're, if that helps. I'm sorry.
Well, when you put it that way, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, depending on or the loss of someone's life.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's also the problem of with these systems, maybe they don't support encryption to begin with. Maybe the vendor doesn't even exist anymore. So what do y'all do in that situation?
Inline. You can do inline, where the technology sits between, typically your high risk. So for OT, you want to treat IT. The whole zero trust thing is you don't want to trust IT either. So you have to protect your OT.
No one does.
Yeah, you have to protect OT from the risk that sits in IT. Because, if I always pick on accountants, but if an accountant clicked on a link in an email in IT and they get ransomware, you want to know, what computer it is and what port. And the CISO, the SOC, when they get the alert, should know that, because it's an IT system. They own the system. So what's the playbook? To shut off the port, shut off the computer, to make sure it doesn't spread or leak data. But with OT, if you get ransomware, you have to keep it running. You can't just remote in and shut off. You have to have a different playbook. That's why CISOs have to understand, to do security, you just have to do it in a different way.
Okay.
To be effective.
Right. And at the end of the day, effectiveness is what actually counts. It doesn't matter how theoretically pure you were.
Exactly.
So, touching on the ransomware thing, have y'all seen a lot of OT ransomware? Like what? That's kind of been a hot button topic.
Typically spreads, but I'll let
Yeah,
you
it's
go on.
more IT ransomware that spreads into the OT because it's
Interesting.
either convenient or low-hanging fruit, or there's some sort of connection that it was able to swim on in.
Okay.
But that's it's
So you're saying
definitely-
you're saying the ransomware is mostly hitting like the HMIs or something,
Yep.
the Windows HMIs.
After it's got come in through IT.
Oh, right,
So somebody, a front office user with internet access, so the HMI may be running Windows 7 without internet access, but there's an open SMB share from the engineer in IT, or there's a dual NIC computer with the engineer because he didn't want to walk, a quarter mile to get to the plan. He had another cable connected to his computer, or an open SMB share to back up the HMI and send it to IT. So again, there are good reasons to connect it to. You just have to do it in a secure way to protect that, essentially that ransomware risk from hitting OT.
So what you're telling me is it is in fact actually IT's fault, and we should just blame them entirely.
20 years ago, it was always the network's fault. Always. Like I was guilty until proven innocent. And today, I don't know. There's so much with internet connectivity. But yeah, it's always IT.
I mean, I've been doing network engineering for many years, and the network is always to blame. Actually, in fact,
could be the database, could be the app, could be something, but no, the network's blamed first.
So with these devices, they get ransomware or whatever. Let's say you have an HMI that has been ransomwared. What do you do? Do you swap out the HMI? What's the way to handle that?
Yeah, so definitely a swap out is an option, or if you're able to clear it back down to bare metal and you've got some golden images of that HMI or backups, that sort of thing, then you can restore back from those. But that's the key, is making sure that you get it completely off of that asset. Similar to IT.
There are backup vendors that have OT, HMI specific backup capabilities to get it reverted back to pre-incident.
So with these, and we're focusing on HMIs because those tend to be systems that run Windows
Legacy
or run
Windows,
Linux or whatever. We are seeing OT devices, as they get heftier, actually running embedding Windows CE or
Containers
Linux or whatever. What's the security look like on those?
Okay, so for those, again, you can't put EDR on it.
Right.
Yeah, so you can't put an agent on it.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't. And that's where the mitigating strategies of, not just segmentation between IT and OT, but that micro segmentation. So having a good asset inventory and knowing what protocols that device talks to and what it talks to, you can implement that micro segmentation strategy of essentially whitelisting that protocol to that device. That way anything else that talks to it or it tries to talk to something else is automatically blocked because it's an anomaly at that point.
So we are almost out of time. Is there anything y'all wanted to cover before?
No, just really appreciate the partnership between GuidePoint and runZero, and love working with your team.
I love working with y'all. So this was Patrick Gillespie and Mary Gannon from GuidePoint Security. Thank y'all so much for being here. I always love talking with people about OT and OT security. And for those of you out in internet land, this is going to be shifting to the afternoon session on LinkedIn. So if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on the runZero website, same bat time, same bat channel, no need to change. But if you're watching on LinkedIn, please switch over to the afternoon stream so that you don't miss any of the amazing programming that we have coming up. So again, Patrick, Mary, thank you so much, and we will be back in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.